Greetings, Berners. This is Robin Landis reporting live from Tucson, Arizona for the Bern Report. I wanted to talk to you today about a very important issue. There's going to be some information below that is referenced, but it's really important to get the word out about this issue right now, and I wanted to do it every way possible. Thought video might be a good way to try to do that as well. So we're going to cover something that everybody needs to be talking about right now and everybody needs to be sharing about, which has to do with the superdelegates. Now, there's a lot of things we could be talking about regarding the superdelegates. There's a lot of things we could be writing about and sharing about. We've been talking for months now about the way the media has been reporting superdelegate counts in the total delegate counts along with pledged delegates, which is completely, the media has been advised not to do that, even by the DNC, even if that was just kind of a token instruction. But they're not supposed to be doing that. They do it because they do not vote until the convention. We could also be writing, and we will be writing, about how is it that superdelegates can be lobbyists. I mean, there are so many superdelegates that are lobbyists. It's ridiculous. So we'll be talking about that too. But something that's really important to be talking about right now is superdelegates are becoming more and more of an issue because it's becoming clear that it's going to be a contested convention, even though a lot of the mainstream media is still behaving like Clinton is the presumptive nominee and it's over. We know, I mean, if you have a computer and you have a critical thinking mind, you know that it's not over. It's far from over. Sanders has a lot of momentum right now, and he's continuing to get momentum. It's closer than they would like us to think, and by nearly all the math, unless a miracle occurs, this is going to be a contested convention, which means that the superdelegates are, actually stand a chance of playing a role that when this was established, the Democratic Party hoped they would rarely have to play, but they're going to have to play it this time, and it's really important that they and we understand what their role actually is. And there seems to be some confusion right now about what their role actually is. And I think the mainstream media would like for there to be confusion, and superdelegates and the Clinton campaign would like for there to be confusion. It's really important that we keep spreading the word about what their role is and is not. And in that, particularly something I'm really concerned about, and that's really bothering me, is that we need to be, they need to be clear about what their role is, and also to choose what their role is. In other words, they can't have it both ways. They can't say in one situation, such as at the state level, that they do not, it's not their job to go with the will of the voters, and then suddenly get to the national level and say, oh, we have to go with the will of the voters, and basically hide behind the voters and say, hey, we have to go with the popular vote. Now, there's a lot of things that right now, there's a lot we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we still have elections coming up, and we'll see just how close it is. A lot of us think it could be very close. It's not out of the question that Sanders could actually edge ahead in pledged delegates, but he's acknowledged, and we all acknowledge, that's pretty hard math. It's pretty hard math for her too, though. So most likely we will end up with a contested convention, and then and then it's sort of like, who's the stronger candidate? Now, what's been going on so far is that, and Sanders has been pointing this out, and he gets grief for it when he does, is that at the state level, in the states after an election, in many cases, Sanders has had, he's won the state, sometimes by a very large margin, sometimes by what most people would consider a landslide, and he's picked up few or no superdelegates. In other words, the superdelegates have stuck with their pledge to Clinton. For example, Washington State is a really good example. He won, I think, 73% of the vote. He ended up with 0 superdelegates. In other words, all of the superdelegates who pledged to Clinton before Washington actually voted have stayed with Clinton. And at this point, most of them are staying with Clinton. There are a few that have come over, but most of them are staying with Clinton. And this pattern goes down the line, and I'm going to be posting below the video some references, some data, some very good supporting information about this, and that will include some of the numbers about states where Sanders won by a large margin, and and he picked up no superdelegates, or few superdelegates. Now, Sanders has said in a state, he believes that in a state where, how it should work if we have superdelegates is in a state where either candidate picks up most of the vote, that candidate should get all the superdelegates. So, he says, like in Mississippi, if Clinton won the day, then she should get all the superdelegates, but that in the states where he won the day, he should get them. He has been mocked for saying this. I mean, he's been basically, the mainstream media loves to come down on him when he suggests how dare you suggest that they change their vote just because the people who elected them in that state, just want Sanders. Why should they listen to that? Howard Dean famously tweeted in response to a tweet that called him out for sticking with Clinton after his state went with Sanders, that he, and I'll include the quote below, that he said, I don't answer to the voters. My job as a superdelegate is to do what's best for the country. Now, it sounds kind of obnoxious. It does sound obnoxious, basically because in the larger perspective, a lot of us believe that it's pretty undemocratic to have basically lobbyists and insiders and political insiders, corporate insiders, basically standing by to decide the nominee against the will of the voters. Some people would say that's undemocratic, and Sanders has stated that whether he wins the nomination or not, he's going to be working on that. He's going to be working on changing those rules. And a lot of us are supportive of that. Be that as it may, right now this is the system that we have. So we're working within this system, and we need to stick to what the system is. And the media and the Clinton campaign and the superdelegates need to stick to the system that we have right now. We can change it later. Hopefully we will. But right now we have a system in which we have superdelegates, and what is their job? That's the question. And a lot of good stuff is being written about this right now. It needs to be spread around. I'm going to, again, post some of the best writing about the, real journalism, the few and far between real pieces of journalism that are being written and shared and posted about this. I will include those below so you can share. This is really important because right now it seems like the superdelegates and the media kind of can't make up their mind about what their job really is, and it's kind of outrageous because, as is fairly typical, what they keep doing is they keep just bashing on Sanders. He gets the short end of the stick whichever way he says it. When he says that they should be going at the state level with the will of the voter, he gets mocked. And then when he says when we get to the convention and maybe they should go with him, they're going to have to think long and hard. They're going to have to consider going with him if it looks like he is the better candidate against Trump, which he is by all accounts. Again, I'll include some information below, and you can find it yourself. He's polling way strongly against Trump, and the Clinton campaign is just hoping we're going to ignore the fact that she is, in a dead heat in the most important battleground states with Trump. She's losing by some accounts. She's very small margin. He is definitely the candidate to beat Trump. If that's your only concern, which for a lot of us who support Sanders, it's certainly not our only concern, it's just the beginning. There's his actual presidency, Sanders' actual presidency that we're excited about as well. But for starters, we do need to beat Trump. We are terrified of either a Trump or Clinton presidency for all of the reasons, a lot of reasons we have and we'll continue to write about and speak about. But we're certainly, the specter of a Trump presidency is a specter indeed. It's a horror, and that's why putting up a candidate like Clinton, who is flawed and weak and is for many, many reasons, from the way she's polling to the, you look at the way Sanders brings out independents, you look at the way Sanders brings out young voters, the way he brings out new voters. This has all been written about. There's just a lot of really good reasons that if you're actually looking logically at who the best candidate is to be Trump, he's our person. And he is saying that the superdelegates are going to have to consider this at the convention. And guess what? He's getting slammed for that. It's like, they're basically saying, like, how dare you suggest that the superdelegates they would be going against the will of the voters, the popular vote. Well, first of all, we don't even do popular vote in this country. I mean, why are we bringing up the popular vote? But okay, pledge delegates, raw vote, however you want to look at it. First of all, it's close. Secondly, it's probably going to be a lot closer by the time we get there. So that's going to be kind of a moot point. But even if it wasn't, if you say that the whole job, if you actually read the history and you look at the history of what the superdelegates are all about, as repugnant as it may sound, the superdelegates actually were created and instituted for just such a situation that they hoped we would never get into, to make sure that a candidate that cannot win doesn't get put up. That's what they're there for. So as annoying as it is and frustrating as it is at the state level to see them sticking with their votes, their pledges, their promises, when their state goes the other way, when it comes to the convention, their job is exactly not to affirm and confirm the will of the voters, whatever that supposedly is. Not even like we know that by convention time the will of the voters is going to be Clinton. We can't even count on that. I'm certainly not counting on it. But even if she seems to have the majority by a slight margin at the convention, and even if you don't account for the flaws in that slight margin, because, and by that I mean how much voter suppression there's been, investigations of elections in Arizona and New York, the particular kind of voter suppression that the media has basically engaged in, getting people to stay home by basically telling them that there's no point, that Sanders is done when he was never done. I mean, it's phenomenal to think about how close he is, given how much he's been up against and what the media has done with its bias and its blackouts and its voter suppression, and then the 8 or 10 kinds of voter suppression and potential election fraud that happen in places like New York and Arizona. And much has been written about that too. I won't get too deeply into it here, but the fact is that one could certainly question whatever relatively small edge Clinton seems to have by the time we get to the convention. And it should be questioned because there are many factors that the superdelegates need to consider when they're looking at who to put up as the nominee against Trump. And that's what Sanders is saying. And isn't it interesting that he's getting bashed for that? Some media are actually making it sound like she's being principled because she's saying now that they need to stay with the will of the voter, and he's going against his principles by suggesting such an outrageous thing that they actually need to make the decision no matter what the pledged delegate count is at that point. Well, we need to spread the word. He's not going against his principles. He's playing within the system. That's the system that we have. He's been forced to play in the system from the beginning as a within running as a Democrat, not as an independent. This has not served him in many places. I mean, the insider political system has not served him. The media has not served him. The fact that all those closed primaries in which independents couldn't vote, that has not served him. He's come all this way anyway, and now he's still playing within the system, and part of that system includes superdelegates whose job actually is to consider all the evidence and not just vote counts when it comes time. And he's being told that he's being mocked, and he's being slammed, and he's being painted as being outrageous and going against his principles. Well, we need to put the lie to that because it is a lie, and the superdelegates can't have it both ways. They can't basically pledge their support to a candidate before a vote is ever cast. The vast majority of those votes were not votes, excuse me, they're not votes. The vast majority of those promises, they're vows, they're promises, they're like Scouts honor, will stick with you. That's all it is until July. And all of those promises were made before a vote was ever cast, before a single primary had been run, before a single debate had ever been held, before a lot of people even knew who Bernie Sanders was. Those promises were made. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Then they're sticking with those promises even when the states give a clear mandate for Sanders. And Sanders gets vilified for questioning that. How dare you suggest that we go with the will of the voters? And then he says, okay, well, when we get to the convention, they're going to have to make a hard decision about those promises and pledges that they made, and they may need to go back on those promises based on the evidence, based on the fact that they're saying mission number one, priority number one is to beat Trump in the general election. Well, they're going to have to think about some things, and all of a sudden everyone's getting all sanctimonious. Clinton, her campaign, and the superdelegates themselves and the media, they're all like, how dare he suggest such a thing? Well, it's your system, you made it, that's how it works, and they're gonna need to do it. We need to get this word out, and we need to keep spreading information to everybody about how this works and how it's supposed to work. If it gets abolished later, terrific. Right now, this is the system that we have. That is the job they need to do. As Howard Dean so famously said, they need to do what's best for the country, and they need to decide if that best is really Hillary Clinton or if it's Bernie Sanders. And we need to know this, because if they go against what's best for the country, first they go against the will of the voters at the state level, and then at the national level they suddenly switch bait and they say we have to go with the will of the voters, when that was never the mandate of a superdelegate anyway. And right or wrong, good or bad, democratic or not, that's not the way the system works. And they suddenly run and hide behind the voters and say, well, we have to, she's got the lead. If she does, we'll see. Then we need to rise up big, because that's just ridiculous. We can't stand for this anymore. There's been so much undemocratic about this race, in which one of the Democratic candidates is trying so hard to restore democracy, and it just keeps getting knocked down. We need to be informed, we need to spread the word, we need to question this craziness about this bait switching about which is it, and we need to question the absolute insanity of telling Sanders he's going against his principles to suggest that the superdelegates do what they were designed to do, and making Clinton look principled because she's saying we have to go with the will of the voters. I don't think so. So let's get the word out. There are some good stats below. There's some good links below. Please keep sharing. I'm also going to write a piece as well. If you like what you see here, please feel free to support me on Patreon. I am a professional writer, author, and I am doing this because I passionately believe that we need to spread the word. We need to elect an actual progressive in this race, and I devote a lot of time to this. If you like what you read on the Bern Report, please support us. Lots of good writers trying to get the word out in the face of a lot of suppression, and it's our job, all of us, to be Main Street media right now. So share and like and talk to people, and I'll be back at you soon with more. Again, my name is Robin Landis. I'm reporting live from Tucson, Arizona, and have a great day. Thanks.